Kotoko supporters doing this to me. Mr. Governor, thank you very much for this very short I mean, come to think about it, what my colleague just said here, there are certain things that we hold on to. There are certain things that we keep too privately, especially when we adults want to speak about something, we say certain groups of people, the kids, listen, or we drive them away. I'm not saying that we should expose them to everything, but it is important that we realize that even our culture will not be a barrier for us in this digital world. That we can open up ourselves, share information, make information available, and so that we'll be able to reap the full benefits that this openness and knowledge sharing.
Acting Director General for NITA, the National Information Technology Agency, Mr. Jeffrey Konedu Adu, to give us some welcome remarks.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Honorable Minister, Deputy Minister for Communication, committee members, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome everybody here, especially the press, to the National Information Technology Agency for this press briefing on the incoming conference, on African Open Data Conference. It's the second of its kind in Africa. We are very happy to be hosting this in Ghana, and we hope that the outcomes of this conference will bring us knowledge, will bring us expectations, will bring us the awareness for creating open data, making information available to businesses, to entities, to individuals who wants to plug in and make something out of it. This is the core of the whole process, making information available so that when you need it, when you want to use it, you are able to do so without hindrances. I'm very happy that Ghana today is seen as a country hosting such a program. We hope to build on it and help achieve the goals that open data will bring us as a country. I thank you all for coming. God bless us all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Before I introduce the next speaker, that's my thought on it. I'd like to hear some comments on that. Next, we'd like to talk about the SDG roadmap, and we'd like to invite Dr. Grace Bediakon to give us some insight into the SDG roadmap. Please.
Good morning.
I think we all remember that September 2015, just as the Millennium Development Goals were winding down, the International Program for Development was winding down. Governments, the states, heads of states from UN member states at the General Assembly of the United Nations adopted the Sustainable Development Goals with 17 goals and 169 targets. Since then, well, I think leading up to that, Ghana was very actively involved. There were intergovernmental negotiations to come up with a final transformation agenda for the global development. And Ghana was very much involved in it. Subsequently, we embarked on a program to ensure that the SDGs are well integrated into our own development agenda. And really that was the commitment of our governments as they adopted the SDGs. The commitment was that we would ensure, one, that no one was left behind in this SDG program, and that governments would ensure that the Sustainable Development Goals were, to a large extent, integrated into our development agenda. Ghana then, and until this year, end of this year, we have been implementing our Ghana Shared Growth and Development Agenda, GSGDA2, which was from 2014 to 2017. And because we had integrated at that time much of the Millennium Development Goals, and the Sustainable Development Goals are really an extension and expansion of the Millennium Development Goals. A lot of the SDG goals were already reflected in our GSGDA2. So the first step was to look at the extent of alignment between the SDGs and the Ghana Shared Growth and Development Agenda. Having done that and observing to a large extent that this, been continuing with GSGDA would address the SDG goals to a large extent. We have now been preparing for the next development policy framework, which should start in 2018 to 2021. So the next medium-term development policy framework is soon to be embarked upon. This year is the preparation of the document, and so the program then has been to ensure that we adopt the SDGs and adapt to a large extent what needs to be reflected. So the SDGs are being integrated into the successor policy framework, and the targets also are being adopted. Now, in parallel, the global community has also been working on the indicators statistical indicators that will be used to monitor the SDGs. And so, and in our policy framework, medium-term policy framework, there are three components. We have the matrix policy, policies and strategies that we will be implementing in the next 4 years. And the second part is also an elaboration of that, or a description of what the matrix contains. And then there is a results framework. And the results framework is really a compilation of the indicators that should be tracked. And here we're looking at bringing into our results framework, to a large extent, the indicators that have been adopted at an international level to monitor the SDGs. So this time around, at all stages, we are ensuring integration of the SDGs into the national policy framework. The expectation is that by September, the document, the successor framework, will be ready to submit to Parliament. I think in closing, I would like to indicate that, as many of you already know, His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo, the President, is the co-chair of the UN group of advocates global advocates for SDGs. And so a lot has been also done to ensure that this time around, Ghana really makes a big leap or good progress in implementing the SDGs. And a lot of the policy framework, the policies, the strategies also aim to ensure that no one is left behind. So shortly we will be presenting the medium-term policy framework to Parliament for adoption. And then,
as we all know, Honorable Vincent Sowolu is the chair of that advisory committee. We have the Director General of NITA, Jeffrey Nedu-Addo, is the vice chair. We have Dr. Grace Idiaku, who has been from NDPC, she's a member. We have Dorothy Gordon, who is on the FOSFA, and those of you who know Open Source Society, he is an advocate for the Open Data Technical Development Group. We also have Mark Agwabu Dazi, IT Director for Statistical Service, is also a member of that committee. We have Mr. Ken Ashibe, MD for Graphic Communications Group, from representing the media, is also on that committee. We have Mr. Petro Dagnon, focal person for the Ghana Open Government Partnership, Public Sector Reform, also on that committee. We have Dr. Steve Mantial, ISDEC, representing the Open Extractive Civil Society, also on that committee. We have Honorable Emmanuel Vetra, MP, I'm not very sure, but he is representing the Open Parliament community. On the committee, we have Dr. Samuel Joel Sam, Director of CSIR, representing the research and academic community. Then we have Dr. Charles Kessie, IT Director, Local Government Secretariat, representing the MMDAs. Then we also have the Country Director for Ghana Integrity Initiative, also being a member of the advisory committee. For the organizing, that's the operational level, I chair the local organizing committee. We have Mrs. Veronica Boating, Director of Applications, NITA, also on the committee. We have Kwame Ahiabenu II, Director at Pence Palace Flight. He is the Vice Chair and Chair for the Communications Subcommittee. We have Anna Araba Mensa, NITA, she's the Secretary to the committee. We have Wisdom Donko of the Ghana Open Data, Technical Lead of the Ghana Open Data Initiative, who is Chair for the technical arrangements for the conference. We have Nehemiah Atiba, co-founder of DICRO, which is an open parliament platform. He is the chair for sponsorship on the committee. We have Omar Sieb, Ghana Statistical Service, who is the SDG coordinator, also on the committee. We have Eleanor Curry, also an ODI fellow, also assisting the committee. We have Senyo Bolali. He is a director at Farmerline, which is an open data business entity, also serving on the committee for Venue as Venue's chair. We have Florence Tofa, executive director, who is Mobile Web Ghana, and this is also an innovation hub. She's the chair for programs on the local organizing committee. We have Eric Kumabaku, also from the Ghana Open Data Initiative, in charge of protocol, transport, and logistics on the local organizing committee. We have Fauzia Salifo, E-Transform Open Data Project Officer, also on the committee. We have Mr. Reynald Kwashi, Acting Director of Finance and Admin at NITA, an ex-official member. We have Musa Issa, Head of HR at NITA, also an ex-official member. Then we have yours faithfully, Papa Artest, who is Director of IT for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration, is also a member of the committee. Mr. Chair, these are the members of the advisory and the organizing committee. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Next, we're going to have from Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, to Accra, Ghana. What is open data, but how far has this open data initiative gotten? We're going to hear from the co-founder of Africa Open Data Collaboration, Catherine Townsend, as she talks about the journey so far.
Share a brief overview of what the past 2 years have been. So in 2015, I guess is the official launch, we had the first Africa Open Data Conference hosted in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. This was the first time that we're aware of that an Africa Open Data Conference was hosted in partnership with a government in Africa. At that time, we had President Kikwete launching the conference, over 500 participants from 32 countries around the world. And we had a 4-day event that combined some training, plenary sessions, more of your typical conference. And it was very well received. People really appreciated it. We got a lot of good feedback about it, and a lot of requests to do more. The first and most vocal was from Ghana. And what we decided to do, so this was 2015, what we decided to do in 2016 is to focus on regional, because a lot of the work that we all do happens in a very local way. So this past year, we had 4 different events, year and more. The first was in Freetown, Sierra Leone. We had one in Cape Town in South Africa, in Nairobi, Kenya, and just this past week, we're in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso, for the first Francophone Open Data event. And for the Francophone Open Data event, they had 15 different countries from across the Francophone space to talk about what are the specific challenges and what are the specific advantages for the Francophone bloc working on open data. So this is a very strong and growing movement, as you all know. And our role in this collaboration space is just to convene the people who are leaders, convene the people who are interested, and also convene the skeptics to have kind of discussions, dialogue, potential partnerships, and collaboration. We're a group, our small team is a group of 9 people, and we work in partnership with local team. And they are from across Africa, and then myself from America, and then another partner from California. And I just wanted to describe maybe for a moment how the week is shaping out, because we are having a week-long event. The first day is really focused on Ghana. We're having these site visits where people are going around Accra to visit innovation hubs and talk with people and youth who are working on civic tech, and also to be talking with journalists, teachers, parents, nurses, farmers. How is data actually affecting your life? How can it be useful to you? We're working on trainings, showcases, policies, and then public-private partnerships. And I don't want to understate how important journalists are in this conversation. So I'm very happy that you all are here today and that we're discussing this weeks ahead of the conference. We've been engaging with journalists online because journalists have a unique and vital role in the open data space, because you're at the space where you're able to translate for the data owners, the people who are really mired in spreadsheets every day, to say, what do people actually want? What do farmers need? How do healthcare workers do their job better? And then helping us translate that to government and to the data owners, if they're NGOs, if they're donors, if they're private sector, who have data. So what kind of data do we need to help make public? And the same, what data does government have? Government wants to help, it wants to work, but sometimes it doesn't know how can it get that information in a way that people can actually use it. So you're the vital point between the people and the data owners. And so we're really looking at you all to be partners in the development of the agenda and of the discussions that we're having substantively throughout the conference.
Thank you very much. And I know some of you are trying to take notes. Most of the stuff will be on africaopendata.net, so you can get some more information there. I'd like to quickly recognize our sponsors, GCNet and Facebook, and also recognize our partners. We have ODI, we have Development Gateway, we have ITAD, we have Odikro, Golden, Mobile World Ghana, Open Knowledge International, we have PenBytes, and we have the Africa Open Data and Internet Research Foundation. We'd also like to quickly recognize our media partners, Talk Africa, City FM, Joy FM, Business and Financial Times, and the ECOWASBusinessNews.com. We're going to move on and pass the mic again to our chair.
Do you want to tell us about the history of the open data movement in Ghana?
So, oh, then let me let you. Eric, would you like to talk about the history of the open data movement in Ghana? Yes, sir.
Yeah, before we start, I think there's something I heard from Catherine, which is key, especially for us, those journalists who speak more here. She says that we want to have a dialogue with those who are decision makers who produce the data, those who feel the need and want to use the data, and even those who are skeptical about the process of openness. This is key. I still want to go back to business units, but those of us who are entrepreneurs, those of us who try to create products and strategy, openness is such an important thing. I recall that one of my guys who I thought was just an ordinary technician in my company, were once having a staff meeting and I invited him to strategy. And he pointed the company to where we can, the space, in the strategic space of the industry in which we are. So openness is very key. And as Catherine said, let me repeat that, we expect the journalists to transform the information that those of us who are really mad in our spreadsheets and looking at things, to transform that into some form of valuable information that will feed back into decision making. So it's important we understand this thing, that it's a dialogue that we need to grow that all stakeholders, so that in the end, the value that we expect that opinions bring, we'll be able to achieve that. I think we should recognize the arrival of the Honorable Minister for Communication, Madam Esla Osu-Ekufo. Can we give her a hand? I think MC. Yeah, Madam is here, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. So we'd like to now welcome Madam the Honorable Minister for Communication, Esla Osu-Ekufo, and she will be launching the Africa Open Data Conference 2017.
Did you finish your remarks?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I was trying to fill in slightly for you.
Let me first apologize for coming in late. I had a conflicting engagement at the same time, so I wanted to get that out of the way. And initially, my deputy was going to do it for me, but because of the importance of this event, I thought that even if it was just for 5 minutes, I should come in and make a few comments. And I was hoping to do that after all the formalities had been done. But I think I came in at just about the right time. And so we thank God for small mercies. Good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Honorable Deputy Minister Udote, thank you for so ably holding the fort in my absence. Chairperson of the Africa Open Data Conference Local Advisory Committee and Chair for this function, Mr. Jeffrey Konadu, the Acting Director General of the National Information Technology Agency, which is the host agency under this ministry for the event. Distinguished members of the Local Advisory Committee, members of our friends from the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. A lot has already been said before I came in, but I think we all realize that obtaining well-formatted data that can be used for anything from research to mobile applications development is difficult in our part of the world. And no clear data standards have been adopted for collecting and storing of government data in this country. But we're all working towards the information society. And this ministry is working towards automating all government services. A national data center has been built with capacity to store 4 petabytes of data for starters. And in the information society, data will become the most important token. Companies will compete based on availability of competitive data tokens. It is important, therefore, that as we move towards the information society, we look at how data is collected, formatted, and stored for retrieval. And the Data Protection Commissioner is here, so she would also be keen on how we protect the personal data that we handle. Open data, as we all know, is data that has been in an open format and can be reused by any person without any permissions or royalties on copyright. Open data must be legal, that is with free license, and be machine readable and complete. In that format, it can promote development of businesses that develop applications using the data. Researchers can also use that data to tell stories. And if our governments adopt an open by default policy, all government agencies will be required to generate data in an open format and according to some agreed national standards which would be adopted. There is evidence that many countries in the West, South America, and Asia who have taken up open data seriously are creating smart cities driven by open data generated by the municipalities. government officials are making evidence-based decisions based on the open data analytics, and citizens are receiving applications like UK Crime Map, farmer support applications for weather and flood alerts, and we do need that kind of information. But as always, Africa has been left behind, and we remain in the dark as data education is limited. Its generation is not based on nationally adopted standards across government. Everybody's doing whatever they like, and we're all working in silos and not talking to each other. We need to catch up. In fact, we can leapfrog because we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We can adopt policies that will make open data the standard data format generated by all government agencies. Ghana is one of the first countries to start an open data initiative in January 2012, after the then late president, Professor Atamil, signed onto the Open Government Partnership. Some progress has been made in this area, but we still have a long way to go, and there's several challenges which include lack of an open data policy and guidelines that ensure that open data is a whole of government initiative. Lack of technical data standards to ensure development of the demand side of open data in Ghana, and very little visibility of the Ghana Open Data Initiative, and very little impact made on government and citizens. To correct and address some of these challenges, my ministry initiated the Data for Development program under the e-Transform project in 2014, focusing on open data, data protection, and data analytics. It is hoped that by the end of the project in 2019, Ghana would have a vibrant open data community with lots of impact to show. We were selected by the Africa Open Data Collaboratives and Community to host the second in the series of the Africa Open Data Conferences. The first, I'm told, took place in Tanzania in 2015. In July 2017, we will have an influx of open data enthusiasts, professionals, and donors in Accra to attend the conference, which will take place from the 17th to the 21st. The conference will have 3 days of pre-conference activities, and the policy discussions and conference will be opened by His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo, President of the Republic of Ghana, on 20th July 2017. Specifically, our objectives for hosting the conference includes the following. 1, to address the open data skills gap in Ghana and Africa, to build open data awareness in the business community, the media, governments, civil society, and amongst our citizens, to help identify issues relating to access and use of open data, to facilitate stakeholder engagement to increase open data use in Ghana, to drive the use of open data by business, the media, governments, civil society, and the public, to promote the development and harmonization of data standards across board, identify the kind of data regime needed for the most effective and robust systems for the implementation and attainment of the SDGs. And finally, to identify and increase the demand for open government data in Ghana. And yes, we're going to pass the Freedom of Information Law. We expect that the entire open data community in Ghana, the hospitality industry, which will be host to about 1,000 participants, and the public will become worthy ambassadors of Ghana to the global community, who will be in Ghana to attend the conference to make this conference a great experience. I wish to thank the advisory committee chaired by my able deputy, Vincent Obama, the organizing committee, and the Africa Open Data Collaboratives for the effort to make the conference a great event. I believe they will work together and work hard to make the event visible, viable, and successful. And on that note, I wish to formally launch the Africa Open Data Conference 2017. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. So it's been launched and we're about to leapfrog.
Yes.
FYI, FOI is going to be passed. So we'll quickly get our chairman to
Closing remarks and then
give us closing remarks. But before he does that, I do want to quickly iterate that since this is such a huge initiative, the sponsors we mentioned, the table is still open for other sponsors who want to partner and join with us. This is a big movement and we want more partners. So the sponsors out there who are listening. Sir, for your closing remarks.
Thank you very much. Let me thank my minister. She was very busy for squeezing time to come and launch this program for us. Thank you very much. Let me thank all of you for coming. I think since we started this program, all the speakers, including my minister, have reiterated the importance of the well-formatted, open, free, without accessible, reusable information, and the essence of it and how to develop and create value. I think that we've highlighted the need for African governments to really be able to catch up, and that's what Mr. said, we leapfrog, so that we'll be able to ensure that citizens, those who want to use data, the journalists who want to communicate data, and we as a government able to get the feedback to provide the kind of format and the technical way that will make data very important. We are really looking forward to welcoming the whole world here in July, and we hope that from now to then the journalists will help us to create the awareness and to start the dialogue to be on openness and the need for us all to ensure that we contribute to this discussion. So I wish to thank all of you for coming, and we look forward to continuously engage you between now up to 7th in July. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now we'll ask Patricia Adefino to give us a closing prayer.
Let's pray. Father, in the name of Jesus, we thank you for a successful launch. We pray that you grant strength to the organizing committee members, even as they prepare for the main conference. We pray for making it possible for everybody to be present here. And we pray that you guide us successfully into our various offices. And that, Lord, in the end, we give you glory, honor, and adoration. But many other things to us through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. While we allow our dignitaries to exit, those who want to have interviews, you can have interviews in front of the ad here. And there'll be refreshments just outside. So there'll be refreshments just outside, so you can engage there. Thank you. The media around, please see Eric outside, the media around for your protocol stuff.
You have interview.
Okay.
Okay, if interview, I'm doing your interview. No. What is it? No, make that use. Yeah. Give me five.
What plans we have sort of using open data for governance, open governance, open interaction.
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much. As we said, this conference is really, the whole thing is a process. You know, when you look at this part of the world, Africa, we are a bit behind in terms of how we open up information, how we make information available. So we are just beginning the process of engaging, beginning the dialogue on how to sensitize people, create the awareness, even including ourselves as government, on how the value that when you are open, when you make well formatted, timely information available, the value that it can create, the development, and then in terms of jobs and the opportunities that it can create. So this what we are doing here is part of the process of eventually coming out with a national policy and national standards on open data, on making data available for development.
So I do understand that it is going to take, well, eventually a while for it to get down to the people. But the last one on citizen interaction, do we have any specific idea on how people who are not particularly tech savvy or people who are in the grassroots may be able to access some data for their own informal interactions and informal development and things like that? Do we have an idea of something like that we want to do?
Well, I think we are in a process. All this is part of the process. We at the Ministry of Communication have a policy of universal access. We have a policy of making a lot of people digitally literate, because there's no point in making information people cannot access it. And as the coordinator rightly said, we expect the journalists to fill in the void now. So when they have it, they'll be able to translate it in a format that those who are not technically savvy, those who are technically illiterate, but we still need their feedback and their contribution to do that. So it's a whole sort of a new ecosystem we are developing. We are not there yet. I think we all agree. We are not there yet. But it's a whole ecosystem with various components, accessibility, penetration, and then we also, as I said, need standards on how information could be made available in a way that will not jeopardize the security of the country. So it's all part of the process.
find out is, because you are with Data Protection Commission, yes. So this is us discussing open data, curating data, allowing people to be able to easily access data for whatever it is that they want to do. Obviously, the idea is to have legal data, but do we have any fears on how much, technology always bring up fears. When there's always the growth and development, there's always all of these fears. Do we have any fears on how people will be able to use the data and the kind of data that people can actually access?
For the Data Protection Commission, I believe our fears has to do with the proper collection parameters.
Okay.
Our fears has to do with appropriate classification and sharing of information.
Okay.
Because in as much as we recognize that information is important and making information readily available is even more important for a developing country such as ours, we have to circulate that information within the right parameters.
Yeah.
So of course because of open data, it's not every information about me that is collected by government for other legitimate purposes that must be made available. We know the importance of data for research purposes, for development, for planning purposes, but these are statistical data and they must be made available within the right context. So from the Commission's perspective, the importance of one, how are we collecting the information? How are we segregating the information, classifying them to know that this is an open data context? So if you're within the public sector and certain sets of information should be made available, are you well trained to know and understand what information is being collected? Now, the platforms that are going to be used in transmitting, maybe anonymizing, and then even sharing the information, are these platforms working exactly the way we want it to? So those are the kind of issues that will come up. But of course, we as a commission also have a very important role to play.
Yeah, I was just
in that if everything that we're doing does not add up, you're not going to have credible information. If we're able to succeed in getting the Ghanaian data protection compliant, in getting public officers data protection compliant, which means they're collecting the right information. So first, they know what they're collecting.
Yeah.
So if you're asking them for information, they know the set of information they have available, they know what they can give. So it's not like they have to go into some archive to go and dig, and you may not even get consistent information that you want, because what we are requiring is that, first of all, know what you're collecting, know the context in which you're collecting it for, know what uses you're going to put the information. And so once you have some of these things straight up at the beginning, you're able to take better decisions. You're able to even give more out because you can give credible information out. So there's a lot that also has to do, the success of these programs for the country also have to do with the success of data protection in its entirety.
Okay.
Because that is what will bring in the rights collection frameworks, clearer policies on collection, security safeguards and the rest, clearer information on what we are holding in the first place. And then it makes it easier for us to know what we can share, and what we cannot share, in what context we're willing to share that information.
Okay, great. Nice one. Last short one before you go. Is there any specific sector or industry or activity that you are hoping that this conference and what the dialogues about open data can particularly impact?
I'm hoping that, of course, because this is a government initiative and a lot hinges on public sector information collection and handling, I am hoping that it will impact positively on how the public sector, which is a challenge to the data protection itself, how the public sector is actually seeing the collection and handling of data. And we're hoping that, government will this will push government to put in a lot more resources to enable us train, to enable us reorient the mind of public sector organizations when it comes to how we collect and handle, information.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. I hope it was useful.
Okay, so we just want to find out what specific, this is open data and it's good for the whole country and all of the sectors, but are there any specific sectors or industries that you think that this open data conference and the subsequent dialogues can particularly impact? Maybe say governance as far as interactions with the ordinary citizens go, or health, or...
In fact, I won't single out any particular sector. It's good for all of us if we can access data out there and use it for our purposes in a secure manner without seeking authorization or paying a fee for that, knowing that whatever, if it is in academia, researchers would need it, the applications development community would need it. All of us, government, citizens, would need information from the governments across sectors, local government, health, education, communications itself, agriculture, you name it. In every sector, when people have access to the information that they need to guide their decision making, it helps and makes it easier to plan. And for those who want to profile you so they can tailor make specific services based on your profile, they need access to that information. And it reduces the duplication as well. Instead of agencies constantly asking people to give them the same registration information over and over and over again, if at the click of a button you can access all that information you need in a particular area, you don't have to go asking people to spend valuable time giving you that same information and data again. So it is something that is good. But it is one part of where we want to get to, which is the digital Ghana. And the various building blocks that we need are databases that are interlinked. Yeah. Now, if our databases are linked or we have one national database, then whichever agency wants any information in any particular format just clicks into that database and it all comes. So you don't have multiple organizations and agencies demanding the same information from people who are seeking services from them. Talk about passports, driver's licenses, applications for schools. Your basic data is stored in one place. So it's easy for whichever agency wants it. If you have your national ID card number, to just key in your card number and all that information comes. And it auto-fills whatever document needs to be filled. And then you just need to certify it, sign it, and off you go. It cuts down the cost of doing business, the time for doing business in a tremendous manner. So it is something that we need. Linked databases, secure digital certification of our documents, which is the public key infrastructure we need to develop. A property addressing system. And voila, we are at the smart Ghana that people are talking about. So we can leapfrog what everybody has done if we get the basics right. So this is just one part of where we want to get to. And we will be rolling out the various aspects of it to before long. As promised by the MPP administration, by the end of this term in government, all of us will be smart citizens of the world. If we want to, you can opt out. You can choose not to be part of that revolution. But just like some people decided that they won't use mobile phones when it started, and they've now realized that they can't live without mobile phones, even those who decide to opt out will, in a year or two, realize that the world is leaving me behind. I have to be part of this very exciting revolution. It's cross-cutting. We are an enabling ministry. And so we make it possible for every ministry, department, or agency, private citizen, to work better. If government adopts the right policies which link up our databases and make it easier for people to access information in a digital format and to work better. That's the beginning of a booming applications development industry, a business process outsourcing industry, and the wealth of information and opportunities that are out there waiting for those who position themselves properly to take advantage of the innovations that are currently available. So our aim is a digital Ghana. These are the things that we need to do to get there. Bit by bit, we will do it. And we think that no matter what it costs, if we do it and do it right, the benefits far outweigh whatever costs, and it even pays for itself. So we're ready. We're making ourselves ready to join the digital bandwagon and to set the standard and the pace, at least for our sub-region.
Nice. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And well, okay, I'm asking this in relation to people who are not in Accra per se, and people who are not particularly tech savvy. We are obviously hoping that open data will influence and impact life across board in Ghana. Do we have any plans on how we are going to reach people who are not particularly within Accra or Kumasi or some of the more like urban metropolises, and how they'll be able to use open data to impact their lives?
Thank you. I'm grateful for this question. NITA, as the implementing agency for ICT policy in Ghana, when we talk about open data, means it falls directly on the laps of NITA under the Ministry of Communication. Now, when this conference is done and gone, the ideas, the knowledge that will be shared will be used by NITA to implement certain programs that will be made available to the Ghanaian community. We are looking at web portal, which we have today, that would be promoted extensively. When we have all state agencies that can share data, when data is being shared on such trusted platform, NITA will promote these platforms in the entire country so that a young man sitting in Kwalugu, for example, wants to use health-related data. For example, where do we have cholera epidemic in this country, and how or when does it come? When this young man sitting in Kwalugu logs onto our site, these data will be made available and he can have that research. So he might think, well, okay, then I want to do business in selling drugs for cholera. And I know when I should import my drugs, because apparently maybe the pattern is such that every year at this time of the year we have a cholera outbreak. That is how NITA is going to do to make sure that this initiative is open to everybody in Ghana.
Last one before you go, and this is a question I've asked a lot of other people. I understand that open data is across board, like we said before, but is there a specific sector that you are hoping it will impact greatly? For instance, I feel that it should have a lot of impact on open governance and citizen interaction with people in power. Is there a specific sector that you feel that open data should particularly impact, that will really delight you?
I mean, not any particular sector, but let's use our Greek sector, health sector. Let us say that in some part of the country, rainfall patterns have changed. The citizens in that particular part may not know the research report that has shown that when you want to plant maize in this sector or this part of the country, don't plant it in June because there may not be rain, because the patterns have changed. If this data is properly shared and made available, the farmer sitting in that part of the country will not attempt to plow his or her acres in that month, but wait until the appropriate month and then plow his maize farm and plant. That is a valuable data that we would have succeeded in helping that farmer to get a good yield. Health related, for example, if we are able to make a research report on snake bites available, that if you are going to this part of the country, I can cite Dwarf Island in the Afram Plains North. There's a lot of snakes there. If this data is made available, anybody who is going there would think about it and possibly wear a Wellington boot. Because when you're walking in the bush, possibility of stepping on a snake is high. But if this data is not available, you're going there one day to do a reportage, you don't know. You walk there and you are bitten by a snake. So these data
when it is made available, it can help not just one individual. Just this example of snake bite. You are going on to Afram Plains North to do a reportage. You log on to a portal, look at the place, look at all the things that has been said about that place, and you're going, oh wow, I have to have an umbrella because I know that there could be a rainfall. Do you understand? So open data has endless possibility and endless use that would help develop individuals, that will help develop businesses, and that will help promote economic growth.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Thanks.
Now, in terms of applying, we're using data that we collect to create, well, businesses, especially within the tech space. How do you suppose that this conference and the subsequent dialogues will impact, will affect businesses? Will this allow a lot of young people to go into, for instance, I know of a project by the EU called WhatsApp, which basically is trying to collect data and allow a lot of individuals tap in for IoTs. So how do you suppose that this conference and the dialogues will impact tech and startups in the country?
Yeah, okay. So I see that the program or conference will also serve as a platform to educate IT, especially software development solution providers, as well as SMEs, startup IT company solution providers, to think beyond the way they establish solutions, IT solutions, and the way they deploy such solutions for entities who demand for it. Now, data, as we all know, is very relevant, and I believe that from this conference, they are going to appreciate another level of the use of data, that the systems that they develop would not end at where it is, but then the data that is extracted or established from such systems would also be made available and would be available on open data platforms. And so they should be thinking this way, designing the system to ensure that open data is extracted. In that way, data is extracted from source, and collection of data, or the cost of collection of data by such institutions that they develop the solutions for, becomes also much more cheaper. Now, it should be an area that even if the solution provider do not discuss with them, they should be able to also talk around it to establish and ensure that data that suffices for open data platform is well extracted. Now, reason why I'm saying this is that if the data is extracted from source, there is a lot more of integrity that is attached to data that is extracted from source. And this source data, which will be published as open data, can now be leveraged, or other startup companies can make good use of this data that is extracted and published on open data platforms to also redesign other systems. And when we're talking about data, presentation of data, data has to be presented in a way that the community or the society will appreciate the content. And so startups will have this kind of data and convert it into platforms that will make it much more easier for the public, the society, the community, the entities, the bodies which would make good use of such data to be able to use the data. So, for example, the example on weather, rainfall, and all of that, startups should be able to pick such data and convert it, represent it in a way that in different types of ways that different kinds of people could understand the way it is. Now, some startups would, data could be represented in a form of, in an Excel format, for example, or in a CSV format, for example. But to the farmer or to the non-technical person, before this data can be meaningful, the data has to be represented in a way that whether it is by visual, by audio, by whichever way that the community would understand, that should be established. So these will be some of the interventions that we would want to share with especially people who are within who will participate, or stakeholders who will participate in the conference. We will expose and explain some of these aspects of the data so that the data as it is collected and established will be much more meaningful. We'll look at areas where its reusability and how it is sustained, how it is maintained, so that other users could also have access to such data.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'm sure it's clear.
Yes.
Yeah.